This is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show. We're backstage here at the 2006 Hottenanny with the man, the myth, the legend, the Reverend Horton Heat. How you doing today, Reverend?
Doing okay, thanks.
Good, right on. Now, what do you love about the Hottenanny? What do you love about coming out here and playing here?
The chicks.
Really?
Yeah, that's the best thing is the chicks.
Just looking at them?
Oh, there's no hope of that, just looking.
And what about the audience? What kind of response do you get here usually?
Oh, I mean, it's usually great, you know, but you never know. I mean, no, it's always good here.
The last time I talked to you, you had your Revival album had just come out.
Yeah.
And in 2005, you guys came out with a Christmas album, right?
Right.
Is there going to be a new studio album from the Reverend Horton Heat this year?
Well, honestly, I've got a bunch of life issues that have kind of coming at me, and so I'm not really not really in the mode of doing a new album right now. We're just touring and playing music, and of course I still work on writing songs and still am working on, you know, playing guitar and getting better at that and singing, but no new albums right now. You know, we're going to kind of take a while and think about it, you know, because we did two albums. I mean, an album every 2 years for, you know, quite a long time now. So, you know, we've got 8 or 9 albums out. So waiting a little while on this next one probably isn't going to hurt us too much.
And Yep Rock's cool with that. They're not pushing you or anything.
That doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. The Reverend does what the Reverend wants, right?
Right.
Now, Rev, the highlights from each of these albums. We're going to start off with Smoke 'Em If You Got 'Em.
That was our first CD release, yeah.
You're on the road to success at this point.
Right. The highlight of that one, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell. You know, gosh, I can barely remember even recording those songs.
What's the story of getting signed on that?
It was our first trip to the West Coast from Texas. We got to Los Angeles and barely had any gigs to play there, but we did manage to finagle a couple of gigs, and we basically had the whole trip based on the fact that we were going to have some for sure gigs up in Seattle, and so but then we found out once we got to LA that the guy that booked the gigs in Seattle was no longer there, and nobody had any idea about the gigs. So we didn't have anything else to do, so we just kind of risking everything because we were very poor at the time. We just drove to Seattle from Los Angeles, which is kind of as far as it is from Dallas to Los Angeles. So we got up there and we didn't have a gig, but we found some people to stay with, and we eventually got thrown on the end of some bill. I think it was the Super Suckers, but it was before the Super Suckers. It was Eddie's band before that. They played and then ended early, so they threw us up there at the last minute, and we only played 4 songs, but the guys from Sub Pop were there, so we got a record deal out of that, you know.
It was meant to be.
Well, yeah, either that or we kind of forced the issue. I don't know what, but yeah.
At that time, Sub Pop was one of the hottest labels to be signed to also.
Right.
And I actually heard that there was somewhat of a, I mean, this is what the history books say, that there was actually somewhat of a bidding war for you guys.
Well, no, I don't know about that as much, but one thing about us is that we never let that happen. We never went there with that. We just decided that it would be, instead of like going in and trying to play 2 labels against or 3 labels against each other, we just said, let's just decide who we want to go with and get a fair deal and go, instead of trying to, you know, do something crazy like that.
Full custom gospel sounds of the Reverend Horton Heat.
Well, what I remember about that was having a really good time hanging around with Gibby Haynes from the Butthole Surfers. He's quite an entertaining person to hang around.
Now, he produced that record.
Yeah, and we have this song on that album called $400, and it's about how this girlfriend, you know, basically was about to diss me, and then she all of a sudden started being nice so she could borrow $400 to buy a beat up 57 Chevy, and so you know, right after I lent her the money, she broke up with me and went back to her old boyfriend, and so anyway, I had this new song, $400, and we were in the studio recording it, and we were on a break or something, and I went back and I went into the control room, and Gibby was just sitting there like looking all dejected, you know. And I said, Gibby, what's the matter? And he's like going, he said, I should have a song called $40,000. But he was a lot of fun on that session.
You know, you being the Reverend Horton Heat, being a rock star, as some people probably perceive you as being a rock star. I don't know if you perceive yourself as being one, but that you would never have a girl leaving you, taking your $400 and leaving you for it.
Yeah, I guess I'm just not that good in bed. I guess that's what all it boils down to. I'm not sure what it is.
I doubt that. Liquor in the front.
Yeah, liquor in the front. Yeah. That was the Al Jourgensen thing. Yeah, and yeah, that got a little crazy. That was a little crazy. So
what did Al bring to the table?
Well, I mean, Al worked hard on that project, and but there were some things that I didn't really like about it. You know, and overall, I think one of the sad things about my career is that some of my best songs got screwed up by producers. And so, and I'm not sure exactly why that is, other than I think that people take recordings way too seriously. And I think that being a recording artist is not even really a valid art form. I think being a musician is a valid art form, but being a recording artist is like a person that makes TV commercials. It's not, you know, nobody looks at TV commercials and says, wow, this is as good as Van Gogh or something like that, you know. So that being said, you know, well, Al did work hard on the project, and he did bring some stuff to the table, and but it's pretty crazy. He's a pretty wild guy. One night I thought he was going to die. I'd been there for 12 hours, and I left, and he's like over there like all white and like about to go into convulsions. I came back the next day thinking that he was going to be dead, and he had his steel guitar. I was going, listen to this steel guitar. I put on Liquor, Beer, and Wine and all this, and I was, okay, I thought you'd be dead by now, but okay, well, listen to some steel guitar. And then when we got to Chicago to mix down the whole album, he spent the first 10 days mixing his steel guitar part.
Now, what label were you signed to at this point?
Interscope.
They must have just loved that. I mean, because time is money when you're in the studio, and if you go over budget,
they didn't care. They didn't really have. You know, I don't let them come in there and have any kind of control over. I don't give them a day-to-day rundown, and neither does Al. So, in that respect, it was good. So I didn't care. You know, whatever. You know, it was. You know, gave me a chance to just kind of hang around in Chicago and have fun and.
So did you just leave him there to his own devices to get that thing?
Oh, eventually I just like, yeah, I'm gonna go to the hotel and get drunk or something, you know. But yeah, so. No.
Now, what did it when Interscope? Who was it from Interscope that signed you? What A&R guy was it?
Tony Ferguson. Ferguson, yeah.
Tony Ferguson. I actually worked for Tony Ferguson for a short time.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's a great guy, really great guy.
He was one of the more mellower guys at Interscope when I worked there.
Yeah.
Very down to earth, not real stressed out. It's martini time.
You know, going in there and doing these albums, it's a very sterile type of a thing to do. It's not like a fun, wild time, you know, and so it's kind of hard. You know, I remember us being in the studio. I guess the main thing I remember about that is that we all bought these little go pads, these little motorized things. So instead of recording the album, we spent a lot of time outside riding these little go-pads around, terrorizing the neighborhood. But gosh, I don't know. I don't remember too much about that.
1998, you come out with Space Heater, and that's a very successful album for you.
Space Heater? Well, no, it really actually wasn't.
Really?
Space Heater was the one that was, we kind of got way off course. We were trying a bunch of different stuff. And
because I remember there being some good songs on that album that I really liked.
Well, thank you. You know, and I think that all of our albums have something to offer, and I think that one just got maybe a little bit off course because I was, you know, I mean, I think that you got to kind of go out on that artistic limb at the, you know, even taking the risk of, you know, falling to your death, you know, and that's kind of what we did on Space Heater. But there are some good things on there, so you know, I mean, it all worked out, but. That one I remember a lot of working with Ed Stasium for the first time.
He's fantastic.
And he's just really a great, positive person and still a very dear friend of mine. So,
yeah, for those who don't know, Ed Stasium has worked with the legendary Ramones and with the Misfits.
Yeah, Metallica. He was the second engineer on the session Midnight Train to Georgia.
Wow.
He was also his best story, I thought, was he's worked with a lot of people, but his best story was he was working with some punk band in England. I can't remember who it was, but they were having problems there with their bass player because the bass player kept getting drunk, so they kept having to move the session back. And he had already booked his flight because, you book those in advance, and so it got down to the wire. He's like going, well, I'm just not going to take my flight back. I'm just going to have to stay here another week or few days and get these bass parts finished. Well, that was Flight 109 that blew up over Lockerbie, Scotland. He still has the tickets. So it's a pretty good story.
Saved by punk rock.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's a cool guy, though. He's worked with a lot of people. But more than all what he's worked with and everything, he's got a great ear for music, but a great positive person. So.
Do you meet with the producers ahead of time? And
sometimes.
Or you just show up the day of the thing and they're there?
Yeah.
Really?
Or they're not there, like Al. Yeah.
So I mean, have you ever been in a situation where you're just absolutely like, I can't handle this person, or do you just endure?
Well, Al was getting a little bit close to there, but he was doing his thing, and I didn't want to get involved with all that, and I don't care. Albums are for people that like advertisements. Music is about playing live, and the art form of playing music has been around since the beginning of mankind.
Yeah.
But recording technology is still relatively new, less than 100 years, and even far less than that, where you go and do all these overdubs and have to get everything perfect, and then you get the album back and it's just they turn the drums up way too loud.
Holy Roller compilation. Okay, so Sub Pop puts out a compilation. Did you tour on that?
Well, see, the thing is we tour irrespective of any album release. Okay. So it doesn't matter. We tour anyway, and then if we have time to stop and do an album, then we do that and then go back on tour. So we're touring before the album, after, during, the next year when there's no album out.
You're not dependent on how much the next album's going to sell. Your thing is like, we've got a live audience that's waiting to see us, and wherever we go, they're going to be there.
Right. If I were dependent on how much the next album was going to sell, I wouldn't have a career. So.
Well, you got the fans are diehard.
Because they don't sell, but our fans are diehard.
And there's a lot of respect for you as a musician also in the industry.
Well, I don't know about that, but if whatever there is, I do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because that, like I said, that's my thing. Being a recording artist, we've got too many of those. We've got these people that barely know how to form a D minor 7.
But Rev, you're not in that. You're not in there. You are the real. You're like the diamond. Among the stones.
Well, you're being very nice.
But
to me.
I mean,
wow,
you're the real musician.
Cool.
Spend a night in a box.
Yeah, that was with Paul Leary and Stuart Sullivan. Paul Leary's the guitar player for the Butthole Surfers. And what I remember about that one that was really cool is we did it at Willie Nelson's studio. So when they were in there doing some other thing or whatever, I was out there playing golf with Willie Nelson.
Nice.
Or doing other stuff with Willie Nelson.
That's cool.
And they had a big golf tournament barbecue, and a bunch of cool people were there I got to hang around with, and out in the hill country, out in the country. So that was a lot of fun.
And Willie, did he like your music? Did he say anything or comment on it?
Yeah, well, he came in and there's an album called Twisted Willie that has our version of Hello Walls, one of his earlier songs, and he came in and overdubbed a part in the chorus for it and everything, and
That must have been awesome for you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's a dream come true to get to hang around with Willie. Yeah.
And is he mellow?
Oh, of course. Oh, totally. Yeah, really, really sweet person, and, witty and funny, and not elusive or evasive at all, like some big stars are, yeah.
Artemis Records, 2002, Lucky 7.
That was right after 9/11, and we were out in California, out here in, what's the valley? San Fernando Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were out in the valley for like 6 weeks straight, and living at some like Homewood Estates or Homewood Suites or something, and that was hard. That was one of the hard. Now the session was great. We did it in a great studio in this guy's house, and it had great vintage gear, and Ed was there, so it was very positive. But just being, at the Homeboy Suites the whole time, it was, just this little apartment, it was pretty weird, thinking like, okay, when's the nuclear bomb going off? It's right after 9/11, so.
Yeah, I had that feeling too. Every time I heard a plane fly over the house, I was all like, "Is this it? Is this?
Oh yeah.
Is this going to be the big one?" In 2004, you come out with Revival, which the critics which you really care about the critics, but the critics say this is back to the true Reverend Horton Heat sound.
Well, some of it, there's a few songs on this album that I wrote back before Reverend Horton Heat started. So they're just now getting onto albums. I've got a bunch of those songs around that I could pull out. So, but then, some of the other stuff, that might be true to a degree, but at the same time, there's, from my point of view, there's some new stuff. Developed this new lick that I've been working on I call it the Hurricane, and then another new lick I've been working on that I call it the Secret Lick, but actually all it is, it's a cross-picking pattern, kind of like banjo type of a roll, banjo roll type of deal. But the way I do it with the flat pick and fingers is kind of, not a lot of guys do it. A lot of guys maybe in Nashville know or a few guys in Nashville know what it is, but so I was getting some new sounds and some new things going.
You played the Hottenanny in 2004 on the Revival tour. That was awesome. I was here. Crowd was going nuts. You must love that feedback from the audience.
Oh yeah, that's the greatest thing ever. That's why I play music. It's for that.
We Three Kings, your Christmas album. Tell me what brought that on.
A lot of my heroes and musical influences from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Back in that era of music, all artists, it was almost mandatory that they all did, Peggy Lee Christmas, Brenda Lee Christmas. Everybody did Christmas albums or Christmas songs at least. And so, I kind of figured that it would be something that I would do someday. And Yep Rock suggested it. And I thought, well, okay, that, I've always kind of wanted to do one, so... we did it.
Some of your favorite tracks off that album?
They were all a lot of fun to do. There's a friend of mine co-produced it. His name is Tim Alexander, and he's played piano with a great Western swing group called Asleep at the Wheel, and he did that for a long time. But he's he's trained, kind of twice over trained musician. He's won 5 Grammys.
Wow.
He's done a lot of stuff in Nashville and things like that. And so to have a producer like that was really cool, because he was more of a musical arranger, and that was really awesome, because we'd hit a point where he'd go, this song is kind of crying out for a key change here. And that kind of musical input, or a key change, or you could go to this type of a break or whatever. That's a little bit different. Most producers today are people that are like going, well, we're going to get you the old ribbon mic, and we're going to run it through the, something blah, blah, blah compressor, and all this stuff that doesn't matter, But his suggestions are actually like, wow, cool, that is a good musical idea, So that's what I remember about that a lot. My favorite song is the one, there's only one original. It's called Santa on the Roof, and it's about how my dad used to get up on the roof and on Christmas Eve and like bounce around, and we actually thought it was the reindeer landing on the roof, and so that's kind of what that song's about.
Last time I talked to you, I think you had a baby on the way.
Well, let me see. That was 2002. Yeah, she's 4 now, so yeah.
And what's it like being a dad?
Well, it's great. I've been a dad just about my whole life, it seems like now. No, I can't. That's not possible, but no, I've got an older daughter who's 23, and a younger who's now 4.
Having a 4-year-old daughter, I mean, do you take her
we
places?
have a lot of fun. Oh yeah. We go to the park and go and we dance and stuff. She, all little girls love to dance.
Yeah.
They can't go wrong with that. And sing songs, hang out. I've never seen a kid that liked movies as much as she does. Yeah, she can watch the same movie over and over and over. We have to stop her, say no. But it's fun, dad stuff.
And you like playing the dad, correct?
Oh yeah, that's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Really, is being a dad. So, my oldest daughter has just been great. So, if my youngest turns out like my oldest, man, I'm going to be very lucky. So.
Yeah, I just interviewed Carl Palmer from Emerson, Lake and Palmer the other day, and the last thing that I saw him say was when his daughter was born is, "I hope she becomes a lawyer." And this was like 20 years ago. So I said, "Hey, did your daughter become a lawyer?" He's all, "She's got one more year left of school."
Oh wow, that's great.
I know.
Wow.
So maybe your daughter, maybe you can get her to be a lawyer.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
Handle the paperwork for you.
Yeah. Well, she's at the age now where everything's a question. Like, well, where did the dinosaurs go? Well, they died. Well, why did they die? It's like, well, they're not really sure why, And so I told her, I said, maybe you'll be that person that's going to figure out what really happened to the dinosaurs. And she's like,
That's amazing.
Oh yeah, but the question thing is just great, man. It's a great age. Like, she's got this daycare, and the fire department came and let the kids, they talked fire safety, and then they let them sit on the fire truck, and the fireman said, "Okay, kids, if anybody has any questions now, just feel free to ask." And so my daughter raised her hand. She goes, "I have a question." And he goes, "Okay, what?" She said, "Before I was born, I was in my mommy's tummy. How did I get there?" And the guy's like,
now that's a fire they need to put out real quick, right?
Yeah, boy. I don't think he was ready for those types of questions. But
That's hilarious.
Being a dad's great.
How do you keep up with the health? Because when you go on the road, a lot of times the eating's not that good, the sleeping's not that good. It just wears down the body.
I can sleep anywhere. I toured for so long in a Chevy van everywhere that I can sleep sitting straight up. So having a bus going down the road with a nice warm bunk, or warm blanket and cold blowing air conditioning, oh man, it's easy to sleep.
So you got that down. Then what about the food?
The food, well, that's a little hard sometimes, but when I'm out playing gigs, I don't like to eat a lot of dinner. I usually just eat a light lunch, and that's basically it. So I don't really need to I gotta go find a place to eat.
Do you have a workout regimen right now? Do you ever work out?
Yeah, I like to run.
Cool. How many miles a day do you think you get in?
Well, I don't run every day because that's a little too hard on me, so I usually do every other day. And if I go for a long way, it's usually about 3.5 miles maybe. I do 5 miles every now and then.
And that running will keep you alive, man. That'll keep you alive forever.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I do that, and that's a pretty cool thing to do on the road, because you get to these cities that I have no idea where I am, but if once I start and get out there, run 3 or 5 miles, all of a sudden I realize, oh yeah, I'm right here by the Berlin Wall.
Nice. What do you see in your future in the next couple months?
Well, the next couple of months is going to be this tour. We get back. We've got several little mini tours where we'll just go out for 3 days and be back for a week or two, then go back for another 3 days, and then we got another tour in September, October. It's going to be a pretty long one.
All right, Rev, again, it's been great having you on the show.
Man,
God bless you.
All right, thank you.
All right, this is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show at the Reverend Horton Heat backstage at the 2006 Hottenanny. Signing off.
The Blairing Out show.